Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the ShOUT show. Hope that you're having a wonderful day. We're going live on location from Detroit, Michigan, brothers and sisters. Detroit, Michigan. I'm going to be involved with the El Hibri Foundation Eid celebration in Dearborn on Thursday. I hope you guys come and check it out if you're in the area. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of family and friends. So I just want to put that out there. And following up on yesterday, we definitely want to send out, again, some heartfelt condolences to Brother William Walker III and his family. He passed away yesterday. We talked about it, and I appreciate all the well wishes of everyone. Also want to give a shout out to Sister Ree and her first cousin. Make sure that family's getting love and du'as as well. So today's topic, brothers and sisters, I really want to take my time with this. You know, our topic is winning conversations. Humor pays. Now, a lot of you guys are thinking, oh, I'm a comedian. No. Several years ago, I taught a class on comedy writing. And what I tried to explain to the participants in the class was the fact that once you get this skill, it can be applied to different places. Well, humor is one of the biggest attributes that you can have in terms of interpersonal communications, marketing, PR, anything that has to do with messaging and getting out ideas to people, exposing ideas to people, or evolving ideas for people. Humor is one of the best ways to do it. Because the opposite of humor is sarcasm. Nobody buys sarcasm unless you do it in a humorous way. So the reason I brought this up, because we had a conversation earlier about winning conversations, and I wanted to make sure that I followed up and I kept to my word. When we talked about winning conversations before, I spoke to you about a process that I personally have developed called persuasive presentation. And persuasive presentation, brothers and sisters, was the idea that we are learning about systems that are pre-existing, engaging in those systems, but not getting lost in those systems, picking and choosing what makes that system run better, and taking our own model. You can't get into another scenario if you don't have a pre-existing model yourself, and calibrating that and interjecting in a way whereby the system that is there, if it's moving this way, the power of persuasive presentation is that you can slow it down because you're able to attach your ideas and values and creativity to the process. And ultimately, that process becomes your process. And once it gets stronger, you can detach. Now you have an even bigger, stronger model. I use humor. Listen to me carefully. I use humor. I don't use comedy. I use humor. I don't use comedy. People say, what is the difference between humor and comedy? I'm going to tell you. Humor is the ability to frame insights, the ability to take narrative and have it be transactional and transformational at the same time. It is applicable to all aspects of life. Comedy is an art form. Comedy requires a certain type of setup, a certain type of surrounding, a certain type of, I want to say, agreements, almost like a contract, a certain type of agreement, and it's going to require a certain type of behavior for the comedy to take place. Humor does not have those restrictions. And because humor does not have those restrictions, it's even more powerful than actually doing comedy. So we're going to take a little bit of time today. I'm going to unwrap this thing. I'm going to speak to you in language. I'm going to speak to you in humor, but I'm also going to speak to you in language that can hopefully transport over to the valuation in your speech. When you're talking to other people, when you're interacting, that those interactions become more valuable. that the interchange or exchanges that you're having with people for getting information improve who and what it is you're trying to do for a particular situation, whether it's starting your own business, whether it's consulting, whether it's even doing comedy. This is the conversation, winning conversation, human pays. We're going to be talking about that today here on the Shout Out Show. Let's get rolling. And we are back. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the Shout Out Show family, see who's out there today. You know, we're blessed, extremely blessed to have the people that we have. They're dedicated, they're loyal, they're creative. I love these people. They're the Shout Out Show family. They are the stars. I always say the stars in the building. I haven't said that in a while. They are the stars in the building. So let's get them up here. Who we got today? I know who we got first. Sister Reed said hello, family. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Sister Reed. All right, all right. Yes, I am going to enjoy the state of Michigan on both of our behalf. In fact, I'm just going to go to gas station and go, any of y'all know Reed? And I bet you somebody does. But peace and blessings to you, Derek and Juwan. Thank you so much for being a part of our show for this many years. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. Next up, Mary Moss saying, have a wonderful day, SOS. I had a joyful time with Mama Son hanging out in DC, just doing things and fixing stuff and arguing as parents and children would do in a playful way, understanding that we're both stubborn. That stubbornness is not an indication that we don't love each other. It's just that we have our own way of doing things, and sadly, it just proves we're just alike in too many opportunities. All right, Mama Son, thank you so much for joining the show. We appreciate you. Next up, my main man, all talk for sheep. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi barakatuh, brother. How you doing? Shout out to Toronto, brother. Shout out to Toronto in July. Hey, man, I heard they have Muslim Fest going on there in some of the areas. So, man, please go and enjoy on my behalf and support those artists. So, everybody out there in Toronto, support Muslim Fest. They've been a vital part of my career and a vital part of all that made me funny when we first started. So. And all tough, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, our Canadian envoy to the show. Go to Muslim Fest and tell us what you saw and give us a report next week. Okay, next up, Sister Aika, wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wabarakatuh, all the way from Depok, Indonesia. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hopefully that you and your family are doing well. Peace and blessings to your daughter and your son. Thank you again. Next up, Salahuddin, he said it's just him today. He's riding solo. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Man, what did you do to send Sister Sonya away? Boy, you better stop. She might not come back. You better behave, beloved. You gotta behave. I'm just messing with you, beloved. Hope everything's going well for you. And please give our greetings to the sister, the queen, Sister Sonya Dalton Salahuddin. Yes, indeed. Next up, my little brother Johnny L. Thomas, who I will be seeing in Milwaukee Friday and Saturday for the Get Out the Jokes tour, comedy tour with Care National. I'll be there with Brother Mustafa, Moses the comic, Sister There Yakub, and Sister Sabine. Yeah, it's gonna be a nice little show there, and we're gonna hopefully have a little special guest. Mr. Marlon Hill will be dropping in to do a little guest set. So look out, Milwaukee, we are on the way. We will be battling Bastille Days, but that's all right. Shout out to also Eunice Thomas, who told me about Bastille Days. All right, next up, Brother Eric Carter. Wa alaikum assalam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, beloved? Hopefully, man, you're staying cool where you are. So I want to shout out to all the Houston area Muslims. Stay cool, otherwise you're gonna stroke out. It is hot in that joint. It is hot. It is so hot. I heard the devil say he's gonna take a shahada for a cold Coca-Cola. All right, next up, we gonna keep it moving. And Sister Don. Don Woods is You know, when you say, somebody says 4 or 5, this is my sister, Don Woods. She has a huge promotion. She's going to be leaving the Cincinnati area, going to bigger and brighter things in New York City. So, Tana, I'm going to hook you up with Sister Don. Sister Satana is my right hand Muslim. So when you get to New Jersey, you in New York, you are not going to be alone, and you are going to be on the courtesy of the Muslims in that area. Much love to you, and congratulations. All right, she's a talented singer and dancer, everybody. So I just want you to know. We got the big boss in the building, Sister Maxine Cade, saying, can't wait to hear the distinction between humor and comedy. Very fascinating. I'm getting ready to give it to you. Sister Maxine Cade, who has from the beginning sponsored the shout out show to Preacher Moss. Of course, you hear me say it all the time. Be financially independent, be financially independent, be that financially independent. If you haven't figured this out, you need to be financially independent. Okay. Shout out. And also a shout out to a newest venture of financial independence for Blacks. All right. What else we got? Sister Tana to give herself some love. There we go. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, Sister Tana? Nice to have you back. Sister Tana said that she is working on her Arabic. We will have a pop quiz next Tuesday. We'll have a pop quiz next Tuesday. See if she is eligible for the minbar. Okay. So let's get to this. Winning conversation, humor pays. I'm going to go back to, I was a young kid. Okay, very, very young. And an adult came to me at a family function and said these words to me. I never forget. He looked at me and he said, young man, tell me a joke. And I was like, what? He said, tell me a joke. And, at 5 or 6, 7, whatever, your jokes are really limited. Of course, I knew some Red Fox jokes, but I couldn't tell those because I get beat within an inch of my life. Okay. I told him a joke. It was a corny joke. I knew it was a corny joke. He laughed. But here's what I remember from this exchange as a child. It's not that he asked me to tell a joke. It's not that I told a joke and it was kind of corny. It wasn't even the fact that I told a joke and he laughed whether it was funny or not. What I recognized, and this is something I want everybody to remember, what I recognized was the fact that he was willing to wait. That even though I was 6 or 7 years old, he was willing to wait. He was willing to sit there and let me come up with a joke or practice a joke in my head or rehearse it because he believed beyond the joke that somewhere, somehow, I had the humor to produce it. Now, he worked with me here. He, at a very young age, made me feel like what was coming out of my mouth or what was about to come out of my mouth was valuable. How do I know it was valuable? Because he waited. Do you know how much patience costs, brothers and sisters? Like if you could put patience in the stock exchange, what would patience go for? Think about that. And at 6 or 7, I'm sitting here going, this man is waiting for me. An adult is waiting for me to tell him a joke. And it wasn't just him. It was other people that were waiting. And people go, oh, preach, that's an audience. That wasn't an audience. At 6 or 7 years old now, and even up to this point, I didn't recognize it as an audience. I recognized it as a market. So what this guy did for me at that very young age is he introduced me to markets. In every conversation you're going to have with a person, every time you're trying to network with a person, every time you're trying to do an icebreaker with a person, you are investigating or you are investing or evolving a market. See, comedy is the medium for humor. You go from having a sense of humor to being a comedian. You don't go from being a comedian to having a sense of humor. To do comedy, to be a comedian requires artificial setups, microphones, lights, stage, a club. You have to have those things for it to be legitimately called comedy. tickets or seats or things like that. See, I didn't learn comedy that way. I learned humor watching a host of relatives, uncles, aunts who were hysterical in their own way. They weren't comedians. They had beautiful sense of humor, and the reason why it was beautiful because it relied on who they were in terms of their character. So with a guy in my grandmother's neighborhood, Mr. Sterling Smith, we called him Diddy Bob. Now Diddy Bob was an alcoholic, but Diddy Bob was a very funny alcoholic. I can't even say alcoholic. Maybe he's a drunk. I don't know. All we knew was as much liquor he could drink during the day. When it came time at 5 o'clock, he had to go home and eat dinner. Otherwise, his wife would kill him. That's all we knew. He'd be stupid and drinking and slobbering and stuttering and slurring. We're like, Diddy Bob, it's 5 o'clock. He'd be like, I got to get up out of here. And it was about the character. Now, a lot of folks are going to some people might disagree with me, but this is really important. I reference persuasive presentation because people look at humor as an end all to be all. So Tana and I were going through YouTube, and I just put in use humor to, and you hit the drop down, and it's like use humor to deflect pain, or in the classroom, or to break the ice, or all these uses. And it's like nobody's talking about humor to grow the value of patience. A lot of people watch Dave Chappelle. And they're, oh, he's so funny. He's so funny. And guy said, don't you think Dave Chappelle is so funny? I was like, yeah. And he said, you don't act like he's. I'm like, I think he's funny. He's a great comedian. I'm like, no, Richard Pryor was the greatest comedian. Dave Chappelle is a great humorist. And the only reason I said that is because the thing that I'm telling you right now is true. Dave Chappelle can do an hour and talk about maybe 3 things in an hour. What he counts on and what he's developed as a skill is that you, the audience, is going to sit there quietly and be patient. I've watched comedians get on stage and they're so nervous, they run through. Back in the day, to be a headlining comedian, guess how many jokes you had to tell a minute? You had to get 3 laughs a minute for 45 minutes. Bam, 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 bam. And I used to do that. But it was just comedy. It wasn't humor. The difference between comedy and humor, Miss Maxine Cade, because you asked, I'm going to give it to you. Humor is like sound. Comedy is noise. Let me say it again. Humor is sound. It's very natural. It's ambiance. Comedy is artificial. It's noise. When you come and you look at the stage and the microphone, you're expecting something. You know exactly what's supposed to happen. Humor is not that way. Humor is free flowing. Humor is very, very organic. I'm talking off the top of my head, and it may happen in the course of a conversation or not. But it's inclusive of the fact that I'm willing to listen to you add into my narrative. It's not just the laughter that you're bringing in. It is the participation, much the same as when I was younger, talking about the adult that asked me to tell him a joke. He invited me at a very young age to give him sound. Because comedy would have looked ridiculous for me at 7 years old. Go grab a broomstick and start talking. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Thank you for coming out tonight. It doesn't work like that. Those are learned skills. People that become comedians or people who have good sense of humor, they make the plunge and they decide to put into this art form because that's the art form that pays in this particular market. Many of you are not going to be comedians. I've said it often, and I mean it. When I was growing up, I didn't want to be a comedian. I wanted to be a jazz musician. I wanted to play lovely sounds, not make a bunch of noise. Even that being said, the funny part about humor is very inviting. Comedy is very intrusive. Let me tell you what I mean. I've said this before, or maybe I haven't. I don't know. I'm getting old now, forget stuff. In my nature, despite being a comedian, I've come to grips several years ago the fact that I'm really an introvert. And being an introvert means that I'm not necessarily willing to impose my thoughts on you. Like, I'm not willing to try and get you to see it my way. It's not that important. If I know what my way is and it works for me, that's perfect. But I'm not willing to dive in and make you see it my way. I'm not going to give you the tussle that comes with comedy. Comedy is I have to bludgeon you to bring you over to my side. It's very feudalistic. I'm trying to make sure that you, in the end, you go, he's funny. As opposed to with humor, somebody goes, he's very engaging. She's very engaging. She has quite a wit. Because there are a lot more adjectives and a lot more components that go along with humor. Even even when we just started talking about how we have interpersonal communications with our families. If you stop and think about it, how many times you can close your eyes and think back to when you just sat around with your mom and your dad just laughing, or your brothers and your sisters just laughing, in the absence, of course, a stage and things like that. It was an equal opportunity expression and engagement. Okay, I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back because we just ran through all that time. Thank you so much, Satana, for keeping me on time. I appreciate it. We'll be right back after these messages. Hey, babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear don't get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now's the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
Okay, we're back. Shout out to Convenient Urgent Care. You guys are going to be busy here in a little bit because COVID BA4 and BA5 are on the way back. People, I want to ask you, please wear your mask. Please get your booster shots. And if you don't wear your mask, get your booster shots. Stay the hell away from me because I ain't trying to get COVID again. That's basically the way I feel. I was in the airport today. You just saw people coughing and hacking and, ooh, can I get this? And I'm like, you're walking around and it's like these weird levels of denial. You know, COVID is out there. COVID is out there like a bad relative after you hit the lottery. You know what I'm saying? It's just waiting for that opportunity. So I would encourage everybody, please be safe. If not for yourself, for others, particularly our elders. I mean, telling you, they're not telling you that all the data that's out there, but I mean, a ton of our elders just got wiped out with COVID. And, may Allah be pleased with all of them. Parts of this thing, of course, it's nature, but parts of it was avoidable. I don't play any games. A lot of it was avoidable. There are other countries around the United States that dealt with COVID too, but not the way they didn't have it didn't impact the way that it impacted here. So I'm just going to encourage all of us to do better. Now let's get back to this winning conversation. Human page. Here's the deal, brothers and sisters. The best part about human, when you're really doing it well, means that you're going to say less and listen more. Say less and listen more. Some of the greatest humorists are not people that got up on a microphone or a podium. They were people who are writers. The wonderful Mark Twain and folks like that. Sorry about that. But people like Mark Twain and some of those writers and some of the other Art Buchwald and people like that, what was interesting that they understood the give and take in the market space of being able to do humor. You know, there was a discussion I had with a couple comedians, black comedians, African American comedians, and I said, you know what's interesting? While we have a lot of comedians, we really don't have any well-established black humorists. Like we don't have killer black humorists. Like you would think that we've created this whole, got a bunch of black comedians, but what about the black humorists? And it was offered to the fact that the lure of being a comedian is much easier than that of being a humorist, because being a comedian means that you can talk directly to your pain. So a lot of times, even myself, when I do stand up, you know, there's certain areas I'm going to touch on. One of them is going to be authority, you know, or the application of law. Some of them is going to be personal relationships, or in terms of religious theodicy, in terms of how we approach religion, or how we put religion on one another. Sometimes it's personal. Like I said, I talked about the fact that I'm actually, you know, a very established introvert. Like sit in a room 3 days, as long as I got clean drawers and a bowl of cereal, I'm a happy guy. Some people can't can't do that. You gotta have the clean drawers. I'm sorry. But I think the thing that's even more so is just that African Americans, we're not allowed to talk about pain through our humor. We're not really allowed to talk about a pain through humor. Comedy is easy because the people are going to hear you. They're there to hear you anyway. They want to hear that noise. This is a very natural part. And what I would hope to do in the next couple of years is actually even develop a Muslim school of the arts, for people that want to learn humor, comedy writing, even stand-up. Just as a space where they can begin to associate, if you will, with all of these avenues of expressing themselves. Now I'm going to say a couple things, and I'm going to wrap up because we're already at that point. Anybody can have a sense of humor. I'm not saying it's going to be funny, but anybody can have a sense of humor. You can have dark humor. You can have regular humor. You can have Muslim humor. Whatever it is in that space, however you use it, that's your God-given right to do however you want to do it. Some humor I like, some humor I don't deal with. It is what it is. But the thing that I want everyone to understand, and I'm reminding myself as I say this, is you have to embrace your humor and say, whatever it is, it needs to be expressed. It needs to be expressed. I mean, I'm just talking about for the emotional levity that comes along with getting an idea out. I mean, my mom and I were laughing about a brother I was trying to help, and it boiled down to the fact that he did a horrible job of pressure washing my house. And we just sat and we laughed. And I told my mom the only people that laughed harder was the guy who actually did the pressure washing of my house. And eventually I'm going to tell that story on this show. But it was the fact that through everything he was dealing with, we had a sense of humor. It allowed us that space to say, hey, man, things are not going according to plan. But we can look at it and not be tied to the emotional weight of something not working out. And we can move freely. You know, comedy is different. Comedy is tied to laughter. Humor is tied to the universe. And so I would encourage everybody to please open up your windows, roll down your windows in your cars and tell that joke, laugh, or just say the thing that made you laugh today or made you smile today. Because in the end, humor pays. All right. I'm out of here. You guys have been wonderful. I will see you tomorrow, inshallah. Big ups from D-Town, from the D. Hope everybody's doing well. Shout out Ree and her people. Ree, don't have your people come to the show, though. I'm not giving free tickets. No, I'm just kidding. God bless everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Preacher Mars talking about winning conversations. Humor pays. See you tomorrow.